There's a harsh and often overlooked reality about married women that many men fail to recognize. It's not about morality, nor is it about weakness. It's about human nature and the subtle lure of temptation. No one sets out to betray everything they've built, but it never happens all at once. It starts with fleeting moments, innocent conversations, lingering glances, a quickened heartbeat at the sight of a message from someone who isn't her husband. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for years, calling it the slow erosion of boundaries. One moment leads to another, one justification at a time, until she no longer recognizes the person she's become. But why are some married women more susceptible to this? And perhaps more importantly, how do they rationalize it in their own minds? That's what we're about to uncover. 1. The hidden void. Why some married women crave external attention. Great marriages are partnerships. It can't be a great marriage without being a partnership. Helen Mirren. At its core, marriage is supposed to be a bond that withstands time, trials, and temptations. But not every marriage maintains its strength. Some women, despite their vows, find themselves drawn to outside attention. And more often than not, it's not just about physical attraction, it's psychological. A common misconception is that women who seek validation elsewhere are looking to escape their marriages. In reality, many are searching for something they lost over time. Humans are wired for connection, and women in particular crave deep emotional intimacy. In the early stages of a marriage, that intimacy is strong. Late-night conversations, stolen glances, the intoxicating feeling of being truly seen. But over time, routine dulls the spark. Conversations become centered on responsibilities, passion fades into duty, and worst of all, she starts to feel invisible. According to Dr. John Gottman, a renowned relationship psychologist, the true killer of relationships isn't conflict, it's indifference. When a woman no longer feels valued by her husband, her subconscious mind begins seeking validation elsewhere, often without her realizing it. As Mitch Albom once said, people will do anything to avoid being lonely, even if it means losing themselves in the process. A simple compliment from a stranger, an engaging conversation with a man who actually listens, or even just the feeling of being interesting again. These tiny moments can feel like oxygen after years of emotional suffocation. Marriage brings stability and routine, but the downside is that stability can extinguish excitement. In psychology, this phenomenon is called the Coolidge effect, the idea that novelty sparks desire. Both men and women are drawn to the excitement of the unknown. If a woman has been married for years, where every day feels the same, and every interaction is predictable, the slightest bit of something new can feel electrifying. Not because she doesn't love her husband, but because she misses the thrill of feeling wanted. As F. Scott Fitzgerald put it, we are most alive when we are in love. But love is not just about being together. It's about being chosen again and again. Beyond emotional neglect, another key factor that makes married women vulnerable to external validation is the loss of personal identity. Many women, after marriage, start to feel as though they are no longer individuals. They become defined by their roles: someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's caretaker. Their identity shifts from who they are to what they are to others. Before marriage, she was a mystery, an individual with dreams, interests, and passions. But as time goes on, these aspects of her life fade into the background. If she no longer feels like her own person, she may start seeking interactions that remind her of who she used to be. And sometimes, that interaction comes in the form of another man. 2. The justification game. How the mind finds excuses for betrayal. The mind will always find a way to justify what the heart has already decided. Anonymous. Nobody wakes up and decides, "Today, I will betray my marriage." That's not how it happens. It's a slow, slippery slope, one small step at a time. And the biggest reason women fall into this pattern? Justification. Guilt is an unbearable burden. If someone can convince themselves that what they're doing isn't truly wrong, they no longer have to carry that burden. This is where the mind begins to play tricks on itself. At first, everything feels innocent. It's just a little attention. What's the harm? I'm just talking to him. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like I'm cheating. I'm just enjoying the moment. The human brain is a master of self-deception. When something feels good but contradicts one's values, the mind creates excuses to bridge the gap. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the internal tension that arises when actions conflict with beliefs. The more uncomfortable the contradiction, the harder the mind works to resolve it. Richard Feynman once said, "The easiest person to fool is yourself." And so justifications begin to pile up. It's just flirting. It's not like I'd actually do anything. If my husband paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need this. This has nothing to do with my marriage. This is just for me. But here's the real danger. Once a woman justifies a small step, the next step becomes easier. The first betrayal isn't physical, it's emotional, and that makes it even more dangerous. As unknown author once said, cheating isn't always a physical act. The moment you start keeping secrets from your partner, you've already crossed the line. 3. The breaking point. When there's no turning back. The chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken, said Samuel Johnson. Every story has a point of no return, a moment when it's no longer just talking, just flirting, just innocent fun. It becomes real. And most women don't realize they've crossed that line until it's too late. Psychology explains this through threshold theory. The idea that people who swear they'd never do something eventually end up doing it because the hardest part isn't doing it. It's doing it the first time. The first message she knows she shouldn't send. The first time she meets up just as friends. The first lingering touch that she doesn't pull away from. That's when everything shifts. Aristotle once said, "What we do repeatedly, we become." After that first time, the second time is easier. And before she knows it, what once felt forbidden starts to feel normal. At first, lying feels unnatural, but the human mind is terrifyingly adaptable. The guilt turns into strategy. She gets better at hiding messages, making excuses, and compartmentalizing. Eventually, she stops feeling guilty altogether. She starts believing her own lies. Here's the final shift. She no longer sees her marriage as her primary relationship. Her husband becomes the other man. The real connection, the real passion, the real intimacy. It's happening elsewhere. And when that happens, there are only two ways this story ends. She gets caught, or she walks away from her marriage, unable to live the double life anymore. So why are some married women the easiest prey? Because they're not actively looking to cheat. They're looking to feel something they lost, and once they find it, walking away feels impossible. Not because they don't love their husbands, but because they believe they'll never get back at home what they've found elsewhere. But if you understand this truth, you hold power. The power to see the warning signs, the power to recognize the silent signals before they turn into irreversible actions. And with that knowledge, you'll never be blind to the game again. This is Stoic Guide. Until next time, take care, and see you in the next video.